It wasn't even a case of maybe I can try.
We actually met in a bar.
She's very sweet.
He's absolutely nothing like that.
It was somewhere quite different for me.
I was emotionally isolated.
I realised how important, she was.
Married or not married, it doesn't really matter.
I wanted to talk to her and spend time with her.
I definitely like to have him in my life once again. As long as we know each other, we know we're committed to each other, married or not married, it doesn't really matter.
I remember having the idea of proposing to her after we had an argument, and I realised how important, she was.
He did propose to me. It's because I wanted a diamond ring, but that's probably the only reason. But also maybe get me this commitment, this promise,
It took me quite a long time to save up for the ring and things like that, so I maybe proposed 6 months after that.
But really, we're not too worried about getting married. It's just a piece of paper, I feel. I've been telling people we met at work because he was teaching English in China, but we actually met in a bar. But meeting at work is my official story, especially to my parents.
It was a bar that was mostly from other people who speaking teaching English, and Camellia was there because she was there with people that she worked with, and we just kind of started talking almost by random chance. When we were first talking, I found her very interesting to talk to, and I did find her very attractive, and wanted to talk to her and spend time with her.
Initially, it was just talking to each other. Then we started to go out, but more like a casual dates, because we were back in China, and I've never dated a Westerner before. I didn't know what it was gonna be like. So I told myself just to keep it casual and don't have too much high expectation, I don't want to let myself down.
And I feel like we did hit it off quite soon or straight away. And we kept talking on the phone and stuff like that, and arranged to meet up.
One day he asked me if I want to be his girlfriend, and then I asked him, does that mean we're exclusive? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, let's give it a go. My parents didn't find out at the beginning because I was thinking if it's just something casual, then there's no point. After we've been together for almost a year, that's when my mom accidentally found out from a friend of mine. I've been telling my friends to keep it, keep it low key, but one of my friends accidentally told my mom. So she wasn't very happy about it, but she wasn't super upset about it because I was mature. Well, I don't know, I feel my parents believe I was mature enough to make such a decision, and they kind of want to wait and see, So I say their attitude is not very aggressive at the beginning, but it does, well, until these days, we've been together for over 7 years, until these days, once in a while, my mom complains, a little bit about how different we are, and she can't talk to Jamie, small things.
I met them quite early on, maybe a few weeks after meeting Camellia, but it was just, she didn't want to know that we were dating, so it was just as a colleague that I went round for dinner. And I liked her family. I liked her mum and her dad and her cousin, and yeah, I've never had an issue with any of her family.
And another reason I like to give it a go with a Western guy is because I knew myself I wasn't someone who would be able to perform a good stereotype in my culture background, I couldn't, the expectation on women back in my culture is not something I agree with. So I'm well, this can be a chance, for me to get away from it. Plus, back then when we first met, I was already planning to move to a different country.
My plan was to go somewhere else in China or even go to Russia for a year, and I was really keen to do that. I was already looking at places to go and stuff. Camellia talked about New Zealand, and I ended up deciding to try and come to New Zealand as well, just because she was already coming over.
I already had my plan, came to New Zealand. Then I told him about this teaching qualification program in New Zealand, and he looked into it and he decided to come with me.
Well, initially part of me was a bit disappointed because I really liked China. It was really kind of exciting and new, and part of me was really, looking forward to doing something different again, like Russia or another country. But overall, I really liked New Zealand. I really like the climate and the places around. Even in Auckland's a very nice city. So I did like all of those parts about New Zealand straight away.
Well, initially, of course, there's the honeymoon period. Everything is just so fresh, so different. But it didn't take me long to realize this country over here, it's very slow. I mean, I was born and raised in an average size city in China, but the population in my hometown is bigger than the population of New Zealand, so you can imagine. I have to say I was struggling to settle down emotionally. I mean, I met a lot of lovely people who were just like enthusiastically to help me. But still, that's different, There was a period of time I feel I was emotionally isolated from my community, my background. Yeah, I would say it took me 2-3 years to get over with it. But because it's been so long to today, I consider New Zealand as my second hometown.
I did my teacher training over here, which was like a year. So that was quite difficult because I was still got a bit of money from my parents and stuff, and just like trying to live as cheaply as possible. And then I got a job after that.
Back to then, I didn't really know the teaching industry that much, and I feel I was tricked. Because I know Jamie's always into living in a small town, having a peaceful, not too busy life. So after he graduated he got his teacher registration, and I was told that it was really hard to find jobs in Auckland as a teacher, which is probably not true. Then soon after that, I was told that he got this job opportunity down in the South Island in a small town called Hokitika. And he flew down there to have an interview. And the same day, 10 p.m., he rang me and said, well, I have to get back to the principal like either today or tomorrow. That's a very short period of time. And I didn't know much about the small town. But he used the words. He was like, this is my dream job. I was like, well, I can't stop his dream job. And like I said, I try to keep myself as open as possible. I was like telling myself, well, you've never lived in a small town before. Just give it a go, Just give it a go for a year. So I moved down there with him.
Well, I just saw the opportunity to go down, and I just again, it was somewhere quite different for me, and I was still liking moving to different places, and it was just like a really beautiful landscape, and I quite liked the idea of it being quite remote. And I guess it felt a lot more natural because the school I went to as a child was quite like a small town school, whereas the schools in Auckland I think feel very different schools in a big city. So I felt much more comfortable going and working in a place like that.
It was very, very different. The whole population of the town was for 1,000 people. That's where you pretty much walk into any shop and people know who you are. Everybody knows everybody, That's what kind of small town it was. Lifestyle was very slow. for someone like me, because I was raised up in city. So for someone like me, I was lost. I didn't know what to do, you know. And there wasn't any Chinese. Like actually, when we first moved down there was a Chinese restaurant, but somehow it closed after a week. We got there, so there was absolutely nothing.
I think she kind of felt like that when she came to Auckland anyway, because she came to Henderson, and she said felt like being in the countryside. So I knew it would be a massive shift, and but I also felt that it was something that you needed to try to see if you liked it. So I always had the idea and said to her, you know, if she didn't like it after, you know, the first year, we come back to Auckland.
He definitely tried really hard to cheer me up. I know he wanted me to fall in love with it, so we can stay down there a bit longer. We went to Christchurch regularly. He took me to see the South Island, and to cheer me up, he got me a cat as a company. Yeah, I appreciate his efforts. But after a year, we decided, under my request, we moved back to Auckland. Well, when I was younger, I always had a type, like a fantasy, but he is nothing like that. My fantasy as a little girl was someone who's like wild, who's probably like a rock star, who rides a motorcycle and has long hair. But he's absolutely nothing like that. He's not a people person, he's not an outgoing person, he's not a music person, you know, he has nothing to do with rock star, you know. But I'm happy with that because that makes me feel safe, you know, and that is one thing important for me.
I think she's a very caring person. She cares for her friends and, you know, everyone around her, like her students in her class. You know, she's very sweet and quite empathetic and really does think about all the small things that might affect you or affect other people, which I always find really nice. I think seeing her take care of her pets and kind of the lengths that she goes to. She doesn't view herself as kind of like traditional Chinese, whereas I view her being quite traditional in her values and stuff. But I guess it's more like she kind of comes halfway to Western values herself, and I'm quite happy with, you know, with how she was. I do kind of like those traditional values. That is probably something that, you know, attracted me to that kind of relationship in the first place.
As soon as we came to New Zealand, we lived together. You know, it just felt right, and also it's an economic way to live in such a big city. But after we lived together with each other for like 2-3 years, we definitely get to know each other. We can move on. We can make the next step of our life. Then soon after that, he proposed to me. Then a year after, we got a house together.
I think it was more when we moved in together, when we came to Auckland, because as you said, it's the day-to-day stuff. And I don't think there was really such cultural differences. Maybe with the food and eating differently was probably a big one. I feel like I'm a bit more easygoing than Camellia a lot of the time. She'll get upset about more small things that take me a while to get used to. And I feel like it was just making an adjustment and yeah, being able to communicate with each other and yeah, just get used to living with each other.
When it comes to food, I think that was a process for us to get to know each other's preference and set our routine. Until these days, we don't cook together, we don't eat together. We cook our own food, which is okay for me. At the beginning, I was really annoyed because I can't. Not just me. I feel in Chinese culture, if you say no to a food invitation, it can be quite rude. So there were times I was like getting upset or grumpy when he said no to my food. But as time goes by, I guess I'm just learning to show respect to his preference as well. Yeah, because we don't share food, and our taste is so different. So when we're eating outside, we always eat separately, which can be a shame for me, because if we share, we can order like multiple dishes for everybody to share. But if we're having our own, then I can only order 1 or 2 because I can't finish the whole thing. So I do miss it sometimes, eating with a bunch of Chinese folk or whoever who's open to share. It can be very fun, you have everything on the table and you just take whatever you like. It's a different vibe. But every Christmas, he would be the one who cooked the Christmas dinner, which is very lovely. Yeah, I definitely enjoy that bit.
I don't manage the food that well at all because for me it just wasn't an option, because Camelia's meals were always quite spicy and I just could not eat really spicy food at all. So it wasn't even a case of maybe I can try. It was just I just couldn't. We cook separately pretty much. Sometimes we can time it that we can eat together and watch, but often we end up eating at different times, which is a shame, because the times that we do get to eat out is like a really nice time that we spend together. It's just when we're eating different foods, a lot of the time it's impractical to eat exactly the same time.
Well, when it comes to parents, we met each other's parents and the parents met each other, but they couldn't really talk to each other because my mom doesn't speak English and his parents apparently don't speak Chinese. I believe both sides of the parents, they had the doubts. They were wondering, do they like me? What do they feel about this relationship? But which is understandable. And for me, I feel it can be a nice thing that they can't speak to each other, because if they can't, then there's no argument. So it was quite, I don't know, I feel it's quite nice. They managed to communicate somehow. It's not like there's zero communication. You have like non-verbal communication anyway.
And it was a bit awkward because my parents couldn't speak. Well, I couldn't speak to Camelia's mum either, and she couldn't speak to them. So I think they were a bit hesitant, like judging if they liked each other in a sort of way. But there was no major issues at all. I remember I was going to the shops and she was trying to tell me to buy stuff and I just could not get it, and she was trying to use a translate app on her phone and stuff, and it would take a very long time to get a couple of words. I feel like she and Camellia have quite a close relationship in a way that people in Western countries don't. So, it's quite nice to see something like that.
Like I said, we're very different people. I am more like a people person. I like going out with my friends and hang out, eat out, go to the mall. I like the crowd. I like go to markets, the mall. But he's the opposite. He's more like a nature person. He loves the mountain, the river, having walks out in the countryside, which is not really my thing. But we're definitely meeting each other in the middle. He these days he's happy to. He's happier than before to go to the mall with me, go to the markets, go to the festivals, and I am getting more active and taking walks and going outside with him as well.
I would definitely say that I'm more of an introvert. So after a day of teaching, kind of the last thing that I want to do is go out and speak with a new group of large people. But I think Camellia understands it. I get home and I'd rather go for a run or play a game or listen to a book on my own. So I think the big decisions, we do spend a lot of time talking with each other and do make the big decisions together. when we were buying a house, there would always be, we saw so many houses that I would like that Camellia didn't like, and there'd be a lot of houses that Camellia like vice versa, and we just couldn't agree. But we did eventually find, a house that suited both of us. And I feel like the big decisions, even where we live, like in Hokitika, in Auckland, we've always made them together, even if they're not, like Hokitika didn't work out for Camellia, but it was a decision that we still made together. And then I feel like the small things, like around the house, Camellia has her way of liking things to be done. And I feel that I learned quite quickly that the best way was just to try and go along with, Camellia's way of doing all the small things. And I think it works out because she does have a good system. She thinks a lot about, the day-to-day things in the house, and yes, it took me a while to adjust to that, but I do think it's been for the best for me. Yeah.
Well, I say communication is the key. I believe communication can help with any cultural difference, cultural shocks. As long as you open yourself and willing to express yourself, then cultural difference is not really a big challenge. And until these days, we have disagreement. We have like heaps of disagreement, but it's okay to live with disagreement. You don't have to be exactly the same. The diversity is actually what makes your relationship interesting, what makes it fun. I guess just agree to disagree. Yeah.
We were the family of immigrants in India.
I was born and bred in Mexico City.
People 20, 30 years older than me were doing the same thing what I was doing.
I didn't want to spend the rest of my life not seeing the rest of the world.
I don't want to keep doing the same thing all my life.
The spirit of adventure that took me out of Mexico, dragging 2 massive bags full of clothes.
So I was used to meeting all the new people who were coming in, so I thought, yeah, here's another one.